$60 to my name. I put a Craigslist ad up and went to U-Haul and bought 10 moving pads. I just kind of like faked it till I made it, right?
Welcome back to Smart Talk, where we help you go from truck to CEO by working smarter and not harder. I'm your host, Anatay Zubia, and today's guest started his career by getting fired from a moving company. Whoa. And then launched his own with $60 and 10 moving pads from U-Haul. 15 years later, his business was successful, but stuck. He couldn't break that 800K. He was doing everything himself, and it still wasn't enough. But he wasn't failing. He just built a business that could grow without falling apart. Josh Dudleston is the owner of Priority Moving in Portland, Oregon, and the co-owner of First Call Closers, a sales operation built specifically for moving companies. And after 22 years of living in those trenches, he can look at a moving company and tell you exactly what's broken and how to fix it before it traps you because he's lived it. Josh, welcome to Smart Talk.
Hey, thanks for having me, Anatay. It's really nice to see you.
Yeah, it's
Excited
great
to
to
be here.
have you on. Someone from Oregon, where I'm originally from. So welcome to the fam here. Your first job was in moving, and you didn't
Right.
exactly have a smooth sailing experience there.
I worked for, I'm going to just phrase him, a wild man. And he had a local moving company. And what I learned immediately was I love the work. I love the people. I love that the job site changed every day. It was such a refreshing type of work, but this guy wasn't really practicing how I would run a business. I can spare you the details, but there was a lot of, well, it's 60 cents a pound anyway. And I figured, you know what, maybe I could do this, and started to develop a plan on how to do that. I was like, well, maybe in 5 years from now, I'll be able to get this off the ground. And, my boss at the time was just trying to sell me his business. But I mean, I was a mover. I didn't have any money. And so once he caught word that I was like trying to like do my own thing, I'd fire me. And rightly so, right? I can't fault the guy for that. I had $60 to my name. I put a Craigslist ad up and went to U-Haul and bought 10 moving pads. I just kind of like faked it till I made it, right? I just showed up. I did the hard work. I made up for my lack of resources and just sheer tenacity and customer service. I saved every dollar and just kind of built from there.
I love that you just got pushed out of the nest. It just immediately started flying, really. So you built this from the ground up, and at some point it stopped growing. And tell us what was happening when you hit that first wall.
I was very excited to be a business owner. Had all the enthusiasm and the hard work and the drive. And I really used that, and you have to, but I didn't know a ton about the backside of the industry. I kind of worked from where I was at, and every business decision I had was, I don't know what to do next. There's a ton of fear. I don't really have the resources to find out, but I pushed through it. Every move was just moving through discomfort. And finally, it got to the point where I was really feeling like, all right, I have a real moving company here. I'm doing it, but as I'm sure a lot of you movers out there know, it's very difficult when you're an owner operator. And you can be really successful. You can have a 4.9 on Google. You can have a great crew of guys. You can, be one of the best movers that and still just struggle and get stagnant. I wanted to grow. I had these visions of growth, but I was always on the phone. I was doing estimates, but now I'm on the road, and there's 2 other companies that are probably going to give that estimate too. That's 3 hours of my time, but I need that business. But now my phone's ringing and I can't answer it because maybe those people are ready to book over the phone, but here I am in this person's home. I just did that shuffle for quite a long time, and I had no tools. I operated out of, a calendar book.
Yeah, I mean, that hustle has got to be exhausting. You're
Right.
basically constantly putting out fires. It took a while living in that before you had to pull a trigger on a different kind of system. And I know you'd heard about SmartMoving. What changed for you that told you I got to stop doing this and get into a system?
I hit a real point post-COVID. At that point, I had my moving company open since 2006. I've watched hundreds of moving companies come in to the market, grow, become actually huge forces in the industry, and then collapse. And here I was. So I had this longevity and I believed in myself, but I knew something was off. Everything was completely reactionary. So by the time that I was introduced to SmartMoving, I was really suffering from some burnout. Well, I talk to movers all the time, and I mean, I see the symptoms. The guys are there. They're doing everything. They feel like it can't be done without them. They're holding everything together, but they've also got their personal lives. It's a ton of work. And that's fine when you're 2, 3, 5, 7 years in. But when you get 10, 15 years in, it's like, what are you doing? Right. And so another competitor who's also a friend and now my business partner, we were just talking. One of the things I suffered as a mover is I just always thought, well, since I've been this successful, like there's nothing you can really tell me. Like I got it, dude. Trust me, I got it. But I got to the point to where I just was like, do I have it? And so I was talking to Aaron and he said, hey, I've got this new CRM that I'm using. And at that time, like I say, it was a calendar book. So it was a terrifying move, but just on the conversation with him, some of the things he was talking about, I was like, I want that. And so we made the plunge in early 22 to move to SmartMoving. I had my operations manager. All of us were really scared at first. It's like, what is this? But you guys made it really easy to do. So we poured it over and everything really changed from that moment. That was the beginning of a really big learning pivot for me to rely on tools and to create systems and to stop reacting to everything and starting to be proactive in what I'm doing as a business owner.
I love that you stopped being reactive, started being proactive. So you got visibility into things that you didn't have visibility into before. What were you able to see? Like, did you see bottlenecks or new opportunities?
At that point in time, honestly, I wouldn't even be able to tell you what a bottleneck was. I mean, like I said, this appointment book, I would work out of it and we were really successful. God forbid I lose that book. That's happened a few
Right?
times. Oh my God.
No.
It's like the world comes to a stop, right? So once we moved over to smart moving, like we just had so much data that we weren't used to seeing. And it was incredible. Like being able to just easily look up something on a customer's account or be able to see the schedule, look at our availability. So yeah, things started changing from there. We were actually able to build systems, whereas before it was incredibly difficult to do that.
No kidding. Well, and it sounds like it got you out of that headache and gave you the time and space you needed to be strategic because there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about happen next
Right.
after this. I want to tell our movers here that are listening, if you've had that moment like Josh did where something finally clicked for you, drop clicked up in the comments. We want to hear what changed. What was your aha moment in your business? So we're going to talk about your aha moment, Josh. You fixed your own business, but then you took it to the next step because, of course, entrepreneur like you are, you went beyond just building that business. You realized that this wasn't just your problem. What did you start seeing across other moving companies that inspired first call closers?
First call closers came out of the idea that once we fixed our own sales systems, myself and Aaron, through just training and using smart moving, really utilizing it in all aspects, we just thought, "Hey, there's a lot of other movers out there that are like right where we're at. I think we can do something here." And there's kind of two classes of movers. There's movers who are like I was, which was just doing everything, relying a lot on themselves and reacting to everything. But there are fantastically well organized moving companies who are using best practices and who are on top of things. But still, even almost all the time, one of the first things that we see is just like data collection is wrong. CRM hygiene is low. Follow up is very weak, if existent at all. You're going to have reports in smart moving, but if you aren't practicing every single data point and being you're rigorous about it, right? Then all your information is going to be off. So you're going to be making decisions from a frame of skewed information. Usually we'll call in, we'll be like, I've got like a 45% booking rate. And we're like, all right, cool. That's great. That's fantastic. Let's look into that a lot. Are you logging every lead or call that comes in?
Mm.
It's like, well, no. And so what we find is that like movers like to log a lot of their home runs and a lot of their wins, but they're not logging a lot of these smaller moves. And so the problem with that is while it looks really good in a report, you miss so much. We found from taking over sales for some companies and starting to just log every data point. Because we take an inventory on every move. And one of the reasons why we do that is for data. I would love to win that business and I'm going to put it on the schedule. But if I don't, if something happens, maybe that customer's not ready to book, their move falls through, whatever it is, I know how much that move was worth. I don't have to guess. Like I knew what the value of that move was and I know where that move was at. Now, all of a sudden, we have this big picture. So for one company, we were able to say, hey, check it out. You have nearly an equal amount of revenue that you're putting on the books that you are missing and losing in a nearby service area because costs too high. Why is cost too high? Cost is too high because it's just slightly outside your service area. If you put a satellite hub there, you could capture that $600,000 of leftover revenue, right? So just having that data really allows you to make good decisions. You can take all the data, you can create a heat map and find out like where your revenue is coming from and why it's coming in. It's super important. And so one thing we really practice immediately is trying to get companies to practice better CRM hygiene.
It's music to my ears, obviously, for the smart moving side of the house. It's really like it's garbage in, garbage out if you don't track all of that data or you're missing pieces and you're creating blind spots for yourself at the end of the day. I don't think enough people spend enough time looking at their data, and that's where your strategy really comes. Oh, I know first call closers, you had this big build to take sales off the owner's plate, right? And that's one of the number one things that when I talk to our movers, they're always about sales. How do I get more sales? How do I get more efficient sales? They want to work on the business and not in it. What advice would you give to an owner who's still living in that space?
At least for me, what I had to realize is there's this thought is that nobody can hold this thing together like I can. I intricately know this. And while that is a great strength, it's also your biggest weakness to growth. You have to start being able to trust that people can do the same or better job that you can do with your leadership. If you're so great at this, then perfect. Take that and facilitate that in someone else. Delegate to them, let them delegate. And that's how you're able to start to grow. And the other thing is, you got to be willing to take a risk. One of the things that I didn't want to do for a long time was mess up the homeostasis of my company. I knew that I could run two trucks. I just had it locked in, but I wanted more and I didn't know how to get there. And in order to do that, I really had to trust in other people and I had to be willing to be uncomfortable. So the first point was smart moving, right? And then creating systems.
You really do. You hit the human capital wall at a certain point where you can only give so much to that business and then you're stuck and you've got to start to delegate and you start to build out process and systems and expertise in the organization. When you're going in for first call closers, you're going in to work with a moving company, what do you usually find that's broken?
There's this big confusion that like answering the call and talking to a customer is sales. And really, sales is more of a process. Like the call comes in, I'll talk to the customer, I'll get the information, I'll try to close the deal. If I can't close the deal, well, I have to move on because another call's coming in. I mean, that person also might have more than one task. It might be that they have multiple hats in the company. So, really having a focused system is what we try to move people to. And when we take over accounts, we set up their smart moving to really turn on the sales engine that's in there. Smart moving is an incredibly powerful tool with tons of sales that's just built in already. I didn't know that when I first, started using it. So follow up super important. Oftentimes a mover might follow up once, sometimes maybe twice. We follow up after we've given a quote. There's 16 touch points. And sometimes even on the fourth and fifth follow up, we're closing moves, which just shows you the life of the lead is a lot longer than what a lot of movers assume. And so there's so much revenue that's being left on the table.
I really like the structured follow up, right? It's not one email, it's actually a cadence because when you're moving, you're dealing with all kinds of things. You got your title company and you've got your broker, or if you've got a landlord, you've got now kids and you're trying to organize everything. So I love that you're mentioning that because if you aren't sending more than one or two emails, guys, like start today. That's a very, very easy thing to begin with, especially if you're using Smart Moving. So, Josh, I know you work with a lot of movers and we have a lot of the same customers that we're working with. I would love to have you share an example or story of someone that came in with some struggles and how first call closers really made some transitions for them.
I got a company in mind that it's a relatively small company, right? Two trucks and same kind of story, very similar to what I was doing, which is like doing everything, owner operator, hand on the wheel. This owner came to us and really wanted some help with sales. First thing we like to do is go in and look at their CRM. Our preferred CRM, Smart Moving, and vast majority of our clients use that. So we go in and we make sure that everything is set up right. Turn the sales machine on effectively. Improve speed to lead time. That's super important. So we want to get to incoming leads in 3 to 5 minutes or less and phone calls answered and not missed. Immediately missed phone calls go down, speed to lead increases, and all of a sudden there's lead capture that's taking place that wasn't before. Company went from having an average of 29K to the very next month was 47K, and nothing changed. No marketing changes. The system changed, and the
System
follow-up and
change.
the execution changed. And then that would go on to the following month to 62K. This company got up to 82K that year. The thing is that's crazy about all this is like all this stuff was hiding in what they already had available to them. It was in their CRM already. It was in their lead base already. Really focusing on creating systems that work and being consistent and following up. Those things matter so much. And one thing we like to tell everybody is like, hey, sales isn't just sales. It's the beginning of customer service. It's the beginning of operations. It's the beginning of your reputation. Like it starts everything. And so to get that right is so important. A lot of times when we fix sales, some of those things get better. I'll give you an example. The tools are in SmartMoving already. We can take your inventory. It's not super hard to do. After taking an inventory, now we know what to expect on this move. Now the guys know what to expect on the moves. There's less employee churn. We don't have movers showing up hoping that they're going to work 4 hours and then they work 12. We don't have a job that you thought was going to take 4 and it took 8 and now you have another 4-hour job afterwards, right? So you're able to maximize your schedule and your booking. You just gain all this clarity and visibility. The customer gets it too, so they're set up to be more happy. And the nice thing about owning a moving company myself is that I'm still really passionate and excited about these sort of changes taking place, and so is Aaron. And so we draw from our experience to share that with our client. And we do that not as like a consulting cost or anything. It's just part of our partnership. If we see something that we've already handled or taken care of, or we have a solution to, we're going to share that if it helps them.
You've lived this experience. And so, what you've learned, the best practices, the mistakes you've made, you've applied into this so that you can help the industry. So, it starts with sales and it's getting yourself fully set up in your CRM, making sure your documents, contracts, tag your leads, use your follow up machine, get away from that scary notebook. And then you can actually have that clarity in your business and start to grow like that success story that you outlined. If our movers are out there listening and saying, you know what, I would like that to be me. How do they get a hold of you, Josh? How do they get a hold of First Call Closers?
Well, we do have a website, firstcallclosers.com. That's a great way to find us. We have a lead form there you could fill out online.
I love it. I love it. You started with $60, you hit a wall, it finally clicked, you figured it all out, and now you are out there helping other owners see that if you fix sales, everything else gets easier. So that, my friends, is how you stop losing jobs you've already paid for. You stop relying on memory or that scary notebook that you might lose, and you start building a business that doesn't have to depend on you to function. So it's not about the hustle, it's about building those systems and taking that seriously. So you want to be in the other room with operators and coaches, just like Josh, come to Summit. That's Smart Moving's annual event for movers who are serious about growth. It's happening in October in Scottsdale, Arizona, summit.smartmoving.com. I hope I see you there. Josh, I've appreciated the time talking with you. You're so brilliant. You care so much about this industry. To all our movers out there, make sure you subscribe if you want more sessions like this. Until next time, work smarter, not harder. See you soon.